Hi guys, welcome to another edition of Behind the Funny. Today I've got a wonderful act for you, someone who I've known for a long time, and we're going to be doing this. You know what Behind the Funny is by now. We delve into the backgrounds of a comedian, find out what they're doing, find out where they're going, find out what they're about, and how they got into comedy, etc., etc. All right, this is one of those shows that, you know what, it's nice and relaxed. There's no scripts. And we're just, boom, we're in there and we're going to have some fun. So today's guest is someone I've known for a while, someone who I've toured for a while, and someone who I'm going to let you tell him all about it when we met him. He's the one who initially gave me the new name from Special P and told me to use my new name. All right. Please, I want you to welcome and give this guy a wonderful, a fantastic welcome.
Hilarious.
Let me welcome people.
Okay.
The wonderful Tom Stade, a guy that I've known for a while. I'm so glad to have you on the podcast. Tom, tell me about yourself. Tell me where you started comedy from.
Okay, Pete.
What got you into it?
No worries, Pete. Yeah, not a problem. First of all, good to see you again. This is absolutely fantastic. I'm glad you're still alive, Pete. Now,
1 second. You guys don't actually know why he's saying that, but we're going to get into that later on, all right? But the laughter's going to come. Back to you, Tom.
Okay. Now the question is who am I and how did I get into comedy? Is that right, Pete? That's what your listeners want to know. Well, obviously I'm Tom Stade, and I started comedy back in the late 80s and back in like 1989. So I am a relic that is still relevant today, which is amazing. And I started comedy, number one, because I was always an entertainer, always a performer.
When you say, 1 second, Tom. When you say always an entertainer, what do you mean by always? Is this from a baby or?
Well, ever since I know in the UK it's a year, but ever since grade 5, since I met my first acting teacher, Mrs. Barltrop. There's a name I haven't said in a long time. We did a school play, and I fell in love with it, and then the next year, and then when I got to high school, we did another a young man, like in the young man. No worries, Pete. I'm there for you. And anyways, I thought I'd be an actor, and then I went to, everybody kind of knows this story. Then I went to a casting call for the Canadian Broadcasting, whatever, CBC. And I did really well there. I didn't have an agent, so nothing was ever going to happen. But then I went to a comedy club, and I met an old friend there that I'd met earlier on in my career, and he was the one that told me to try stand-up. And so I went on stage, and it wasn't just the fact that I went on stage and loved stand-up. It was the fact that I loved the people who did stand-up. when I started
Oh,
talking
okay.
to them, they were interesting. They were all outsiders, and they had my same. Am I allowed to swear on this podcast, Pete? Am I
Do what
allowed
you
to?
want. Feel free. Feel free.
Okay, well, they had they thought fucked up. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
They
yeah,
didn't
yeah.
think about where their next meal came from. They thought about
Right.
what the world was like, and back then it was just like talking about what you thought was going on in the world, and 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 it was how they saw everything, like just they weren't talking about the price of groceries. They were talking about like they were talking about stuff like government,
It still lives.
and it, it was just interesting to a young man to sit there and not hear the same how's the weather conversation. You know what I mean?
Right, right.
So I was just really attracted to that, and it was just exciting. So that's pretty much what got me hooked, man. And it was
So,
the comedians themselves that got me into it. Yeah.
so Tom, can you remember your first gig and how it went?
Oh yeah.
Oh, come
Oh
on, tell us
yeah,
about it.
for sure. For sure. Okay. So I got 5 minutes. So my buddy Craig Campbell got me on for 5 minutes. And it was at a place called Punchlines in Gastown in Vancouver. And I
Okay.
didn't know what to expect. Okay. So I didn't know I only knew acting. You know what I mean? So I
Yeah.
thought
Let me get
I would
one
go.
second. Tom. Let me one second. Let me just stop you there because you're not really, or really, I say really, you're not originally from the UK, are you? Where are you from?
No. Well, if my accent did not clarify that. No, what are you talking about, Pete? I'm from Cornwall. Stop it.
No, no, son.
I'm a relative of pirates. For goodness
You?
sakes. No, of course, I am from the country of Canada, of course, and British
Yeah,
Columbia,
yeah,
the way down there. So yeah, yeah. If you didn't
yeah,
figure that out, I'm from northern British Columbia, a little town Quesnel,
yeah.
where you didn't lose your girlfriend, you just lost your turn. That was our big saying. It might as well have been on the road, yeah, road sign coming. Welcome to Quesnel. You might lose
So,
your
as you were
girlfriend.
saying
Uh,
about your first
okay,
gig, as you were saying about your first gig in Vancouver.
so yeah, in Vancouver. So it was a place called Punchlines, and so we had 5 minutes, and I decided that I was going to play a character. And the character I decided I was going to play I called him Fish. I don't know why I called him Fish, but he wore a ripped jean jacket. It was the 80s. Ripped jean jackets were cool. We had like rips on the knees. And because I was such a partier at the time, I mean, I'm 19, awesome looking. I drank everybody, I like to
No.
party. So I so I went up there and I pretended to be drunk, and I think one of the like
You
really
say you
bad
pretended.
jokes. Yeah, I
You say
was
you pretended. Yeah. Okay.
afterwards, not so much,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I can still remember one of the jokes that I did. So I was up there and I had 5 minutes, and the jokes weren't great, but I got some laughs, Pete. I did get some laughs.
Okay.
Whether they were laughing at me
At you.
versus with me, I'm not sure, but it still was a little bit intoxicating. And one of the jokes was, I remember, and I swear to God, I'm pretty sure the joke was, so I was like, so I was in this elevator coming on up here, and this girl, I smelled something, and this girl turned to me and said, I think I fluffed a bunny. And I turned to her and said, I don't think the bunny was fluffed. I think you actually killed it. And that was
So,
like,
and you got a laugh from that.
that was my first kind of,
Hopefully,
yeah, I got to laugh. It was shit. It was a shitty joke, but
yeah.
you didn't know what you were doing, man. It's like anything. So, and then, but the funny part is that I remember coming off, and all the people that were there, they didn't really think the set was that great, but they
Right.
were like, your likability was crazy. Like the
Yeah.
people just liked me. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
And from that point on, then I started going, oh, well, I want to try this again. Because at that time, too, I was still in my actor mind. You know what I mean? So
Right.
I was like
Yeah.
going, oh, well, this is great because I get to be the director, I get to be the
Oh,
playwright, and I get to be the actor. So
but
it kind
that's
of,
good.
at that early stage in my career, that's how I thought about everything.
When you think about your comedy, how would you describe your style?
How would I describe my style? That's oh god, I don't
No,
know,
bro.
man. I mean, I would describe my, you want to say relatable, of course, but I don't know. I describe my style as I create a kitchen party.
Okay.
I take it away from your witnessing something to you're part of something.
Right.
That's how I would
Interesting.
describe what I do now, because like I'll engage in the audience
Hmm.
and give them pretty much a part in the show, even though it's a very controlled part, but it feels like you're having a laugh with friends instead of watching a comedian. That's how I would describe what I do now, Pete. That's yeah.
I see you as one of those comedians who is so laid back on stage, and you deliver your comedy with a particular style. It's not one-liners, but it's like jokes in between your stories. And with you, you're one of the first comedians I've seen who talks about their family, their kids, but you do it in such a way that even if it's cruel, it's kind. If you know what I mean, yeah. Because you talk about when you
Yeah, of
talk about your
course.
wife and your kids, people will think that you hate them, but you really love them.
Of of course, Pete. Of course,
Mm.
because the funny part is I don't try to protect my family. I
We
I I
know that.
think I think that, and by doing that I protect them. Like
Yeah.
when because there's, if you try to protect your family, there's a certain phoniness in what you're saying. Do you know what
Mm-hmm.
I mean? And people can spot that. We live in a world where people go, "Hey, don't be in a toxic relationship," and I go, "Well, that's impossible. That's an impossible thing to do. Every relationship is going to have
It
some
is toxic. Yeah, yeah,
toxicity in it.
yeah,
It
yeah, yeah,
is,
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
that's the things that I think that when you say cruel but still likable and all that sort of stuff,
Yeah, bro.
that's the things that I do talk about, because that's the things that people need to know, that they're normal, even if they're thinking these thoughts. Like you can love somebody, but you don't have to like them all the time. Like you
You can hate
don't. It's
them guts.
ridiculous. Huh?
Sometimes you
Like
can hate
I
them
don't even
guts. I know
like my
exactly what
best.
you're
I don't even like my best friend all the time. Do you know
saying.
what
I
I mean?
understand what
Like
I'm saying.
he's cool. Like I got a few really best friends, but there's days that I fucking can't stand
I
them,
was
man.
gonna say, yeah, yeah, I get you.
You know what I mean?
When did you
And
yeah, I
everybody
know
has
exactly what you
that.
mean. When did you come over to the UK?
Uh, I came over the first time. I think I came over was in 2000. I want to say, now don't quote me on this one, man, because this is going back, but I
I
want
ain't
to
saying
say
nothing. It's
around
all you.
2000. And yeah, I think it was around 2003 was the first time I came over. I came over because the same friend that helped me out in Vancouver was living over here, and they said they would love you over here. And I thought, whatever, blah blah. I just, believe it or not, I just finished signing a deal with CBS in Los Angeles, and I left it to come here. So,
Serious?
I came over here, and it was, yeah, man. So I came over here, and I did the. It was time with Jongleurs and Comedy Store and
Right,
Glee
right.
Club,
Let me
and
just,
like the
yeah,
heyday.
yeah. Let me just stop you there, because when I first met you, it was in Junglers Weekend in Bristol. I know you're laughing because
Oh no
you
way.
know this well, right? And I used to go by the name of Special P, and yes, and there was a, let's just say, a little controversy that evening, and I ended up in your room because of certain things, and we're not going to reveal that today on camera. However,
Okay.
it was then we had a nice discussion, and you told me to change my name to Peter Francis, and it's because of
Yeah.
you today I am known by Peter Francis. But tell me why you did that.
Just because I if I'm right here, anytime, because that's a name that you, number one, it's silly. Special P. It sounds like you should be in a wheelchair. Like, number one, hey, it's Special P. Don't anybody
Easy, man.
notice his eye. You know what I mean? like
God.
that's funny, but it's also like, as soon as you say Special P, it's like you're a character again to me. Do you
Right.
know what I'm saying? And it
Yep,
takes
yep.
away from actually who you are. And anytime you hide behind a name like that, it creates, again, what I was saying, a bit of phoniness behind it.
Mm,
And
mm.
so at least with your stuff, it would have been better if you were Peter Francis, and because
Right.
all of a sudden then people would see Peter Francis. But if you're Special P going up there, you got to create this thing that's probably not even you. You know what I mean?
Right,
Because
right.
even when you say that name, you might believe that you have to be this person that you aren't. And then
Well, no,
once you
I hear
take
what you're
that
saying.
Special P, and then you're Peter Francis, all of a sudden you can come down and be really who you are. Do you know what I mean? With all that same thing, and it's something that you don't have to hide behind. That's what I think,
I
anyways.
hear,
I
no,
mean, a
no,
lot
that's
of
brilliant
thought.
because
By the way,
obviously I took your advice and I'm Peter Francis now. But what I was going to ask you is,
yeah.
what inspired you to be a comedian?
Like I say, I'm gonna go back to the one. Like, after, like, number one, listen, I always loved comedy, man. I've always,
Mm-hmm.
my dad loved comedy. Like, I could tell you, my dad used to listen to Richard Pryor. I know a lot of comedians say this, but he
Yep.
did. My dad used to listen. I could still tell you Wonderful Wino. It's 64 degrees here at the airport, which is stupid because nobody lives at the airport. That was the first George Carlin album. That was AM
I love,
FM album. And
yeah.
I remember memorizing that when I was a kid. I didn't realize it at the time, but I remember memorizing it. And then when I got older, man, I remember my mom was in radio, and I can't remember the dude that I used to hang out with, but he loved comedy, man. And we used to smoke joints. Like, I was with an old guy smoking weed, like, not in a gay
Yeah,
way,
yeah,
but we would listen to Bill Hicks. We would listen to
yeah.
Robin Williams. We would listen to Sam. I mean, Sam Kinison, Louder Than Hell. I was
Hmm.
16 and I thought that was the greatest. And I'd heard a lot of comedy albums before, but we used to play that over and over and over again. That's how much we loved it. You know what I mean? So I was already, without even knowing it, indoctrinated into the
Right.
comedy scene by knowing all these people. You know, I mean, we would seriously sit in a car in a hot box. I don't know if people still do that anymore, but get a bunch of weed, roll up the windows,
I know we could lose it, but he's there somewhere.
and then we would laugh our guts out because it was called being young, you know. And then
What's
and
going
then,
to
like I
ask you?
say, when I got to
Okay.
punchlines, when I got to punchlines, and you met these comedians, they just think outside the box. They crave that
Right.
non-normal. I want you to like me. That's the best way. I want you to like me conversation. They don't care if you
Mm.
like them or not. They're gonna say what is on their mind, and that is a very big turn on to a person like me.
And do you ever test your jokes out on your friends or your family?
All the time, dude. All the
do they
time, man.
do they
I
laugh?
Yeah, of course. I call Pete. If I now that I know you, I'll call you in the middle of the night if I think something's really funny to get your opinion on it, man. Of course I
You guys
do.
think he's
I call.
joking? He does
No,
that.
I'm not.
He actually
Yeah,
does that.
I
Oh
I've
man.
got one right now that I called my buddy Garrett that came to me. I was like, we were talking about, back in the 90s, nobody really explored their sexuality. Do you know what I mean? But nowadays, and then I told him, I was like, but nowadays the kids, they really explore they're like the Marco Polo of sexual exploration. Like some
Everything.
of them even explored so far that they decided they're women. Like that's an
What,
explorer,
Tom?
and I salute those guys. And Gareth
What
and
would you,
Gareth started laughing his guts out, and I knew I had something.
Tom? What would you say is the highlight of your career so far?
Oh, that's a real tough one because a lot of people ask that. Like, there's so many highs and lows in everybody's career, Pete. And like, would you could say probably one of the highest highlight was the first time you ever walked on stage because nothing would happen had you not done that. You know what I mean?
Yes, that's
So
true. Yeah.
that might be your biggest highlight was because that's the bravest you're ever going to be in comedy is the very first time. I mean, there's a lot of gigs you're nervous for, but at least you know what you're doing, So that's a big one.
Mm.
Could be the first time you ever did a TV show. You know what I mean? First time,
Yeah.
I was on Club 54. Somebody thought you were good enough to go on TV. Um,
Mm.
could be the first time you got an agent, man. I mean, to say what's the biggest one in such a large body of work, I don't think there's any one, and I know I hope this isn't a cop out to the answer,
No.
but
Go on.
come on, man. I mean, there are some highlights. There's the time when I got on Michael McIntyre's Road Show and did the meat van joke. Changed my whole life over here. Okay, changed everything. One joke, that joke was like a hit song, man. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
and from that moment on, my whole life changed. There was Tom before the meat van joke, and then Tom after the meat van joke. So I guess if I had to pinpoint one, I think that would be definitely a defining moment, definitely a big game changer for me.
Now you're currently on tour, and
Yeah,
how's that going for you? How's the tour going?
it's amazing.
And tell us where you're going and where you've been.
Okay, well, okay. Now, here's the thing, Pete. Can I I like to preface all of this stuff, man. Okay, number one. You're right. I'm on tour. TomStade.com. Check it out. Get the tickets. Get the
There you
tickets.
go.
It's an amazing show. Okay, I retweet all the fans. They all go great as show because not a lot of people know this, Pete. But I've written a new show and toured it for the every year for the past 15 years, man.
Wow, son.
15 years in a row, except for a couple in the COVID years. But I've toured every year, killing with a killer show, right? But this year's show is going pretty much to like every place you can think of, man. We're going Birmingham, Cardiff, Neath. I'm going to a place called Neath, man. I'll go wherever they'll have me. You know what I mean? Like, there's big
Yeah, well,
strongholds that I have where I go to Birmingham and there's like five, three, four, 500 people, and then you go to Cardiff and London's big, South End for some reason. But then I also go to these little places where I've never been before, and there's always anywhere from 50 to 100 people that go there, and that's what I call my start. You know what I mean? I'll
yeah,
start
yeah,
there,
yeah.
and we'll get 40 or 50 people, and we'll rock the room, and so but the show is called Risky Business, okay?
Yep.
Because I, like we said, I
It's a
am
risk.
a comedian that still lives by the comedy rules of the '90s. I don't water down jokes, and I don't
You're not
water.
PC.
I don't. And PC is a shitty word. A shitty word.
Yeah,
PC. What it
I agree totally.
is I don't water down jokes. I treat. Oh,
You don't like PC. Was there a
yeah.
moment in your
I don't like.
career? Hold on a minute. Was there a moment in your career that you said to yourself, "That's it. I'm funny, and I'm out there now." That realization moment that yes, I'm a comedian. I'm the bad. I'm great.
Say that again to me, there, Pete. Say that one. I just missed the little middle part there.
A moment in your career when you knew that you belonged on stage.
Yeah, yeah. I can totally tell you when. It was. We got to go back to 1989, 1990, and I think it happened in 1992. That No, it happened. It was 91 or 92. I can't remember, but it was the first time that they gave me. I've been doing the amateur nights. I've been playing. I've been getting like 10-minute spots on a Thursday. But the
Yep.
day that your peers, because this was a time. Oh, you're gonna love this. This was also a time when uh, you weren't allowed in the punchline green room until you were an official comedian. So say you were
What?
doing a 10-minute spot,
Yeah.
you couldn't go into the green room because they didn't consider you a comedian yet. So
Oh my
you
god.
had to wait outside until your name was called and all the real comedians were in there. And then there was that one day that they said, "Tom, you're doing the weekend. You've got 20 minutes," and I was allowed into the
Green
punchlines
room.
green room, and I got to be
So
with all the comedians, and that was the first time I was accepted into the fraternity,
Jesus. Tom,
and that's
what's
when I
your
knew I was going to be a comedian.
yeah, and you're doing it. You're doing great things. I've seen you. I perform with you. I love you, man, and that's why you're on this podcast. Yeah. We've got to meet up soon again. I'm sure we will cross paths very soon. Because I've been doing a lot of shit outside of the
You
country, but
want
now I'm back over here. We're gonna meet up soon. I know we are. What's all your
Pete?
social media handles?
You want to open for me?
Where? Where do you want to go? But how long
I'll
do you want to
call
go?
you. We'll find a date that you can come and open for me. That would
Yeah,
be
no problem, man.
fantastic. And then maybe
I'll
we
come
can
and
do
do
the
that, man.
podcast in person in the green room.
Hopefully, I'll get in the green room.
Yeah, man. All
Tom,
right, EMP. Now,
tell us
where
about
am
your
I on
social handles.
social media?
Yeah, tell us about all your
Okay,
socials.
well, I'm obviously on TikTok, Tom Stade Comic. Just that's and on Instagram. Uh, God, you know what? Tom Stade Comic on X or Twitter. I've got Facebook fan page. I don't really do a lot of Facebook for some reason, but there's a fan page there, so I interact with people on that. Twitter. I'm pretty big on Twitter. I'll answer like if you're tweeting me, I'll definitely answer you because I like social media. I think it's a great way to engage with people. Instagram, just search Tom Stade, you'll find me, and TikTok, definitely TikTok. Can't be in this game without being on
On
TikTok.
TikTok, got to get down with
So
the
this old
youngsters.
man has invaded. Yeah,
Tom,
man. What's Dad
it's
doing
been a
here? Dad.
it's been a absolute pleasure seeing you again and talking to you again. God, we're going to link up soon, and I'm going to hold you down to opening for you. Yeah,
Yeah, man. I mean that. I totally mean that.
oh, he
I'll
does. Listen,
definitely have.
Tom,
I'll definitely have some open spots.
open spots. That was making me sound like a newcomer, but because it's you, of course I'll do it. Tom, thanks very much for coming on Behind the Funny, and we'll talk soon. Take care of yourself. Love you lots. Tom Stade.
Thank you very much, Pete. That's amazing.
Take care. Oh man, another episode of Behind the Funny. Tom Stade. Amazing.